Wanted to get to our guest, and happy that we could make it work with my guy, Bryce Simon, the co-host of the Motor City Hoops podcast. In my opinion, one of the best, semi-daily basketball podcasts that you're going to find. Bryce was a Division I basketball player at American University, played in the NCAA tournament against Villanova. Impeccable film breakdown, lots of knowledge. I'll just say it like that. Bryce, appreciate your time, and look, man, we'll jump right into it. I know your time is somewhat limited here, but we're going to do the Ben Simmons stuff. D-Mac wants to do it. We're going to do it. We'll get to that coming up in just a couple of minutes. But I do want to focus on Cade Cunningham. Now, certainly last night, what happened with the Pistons, you'll see that from time to time going out to the West Coast. But I have to ask you this. Bryce, Cade Cunningham, from day one, his first game that he played here for the Pistons, not to today, which certainly has come on a lot as of late. What's the biggest difference in his game?
I mean, the thing was, he wasn't making shots early in the year, right? And he started to make shots. You look at the shooting percentages, and they've started to get better. It's still not great, but in November, he shot 37% from the field, 29% from three. Since 43%, 38% from three. I think one thing I'm most impressed with, I don't know what you guys think, is he gets into the lane. He gets to the rim, and he gets shots, 3 to 10 feet. And that was a part of his game I was a little nervous about. And he's done that at a really good rate because everybody's so, they want to talk about his lack of athleticism, and that hasn't necessarily been an issue. So the turnovers are still probably the biggest area I'd like to see him get better.
Talking to Bryce Simon here. Bryce, before we get into what I want to ask you, what is a realistic, as a Pistons fans, what is a realistic expectation going into the trade deadline, or with where this team's at? Because we all watch and know, kaputs, and this isn't struggling, and it's about the future and stuff like this. But what can we really expect? We all want the splash, whether who leaves, who comes, or whatever. But what is a realistic expectation, in your opinion?
I think we're going to see Jerami get traded. I really do. I mean, I know that's not like some, hot take or whatever, but I think that we are going to see Jerami Grant get traded. I don't know if we'll see him play a game or not. He's been designated to the Cruise, and so it'd be interesting to see if they play him a few games before the deadline.
Lots of Cruise love here.
Okay. I was like, I wasn't sure what I said that warranted that, but I appreciate it. So I think what will be interesting, Darren and Neil, is what is the return? Because I think a lot of times as fans, we overvalue our own players, but it sure seems like there's a lot of smoke around Jerami Grant, and it seems like he's a hot commodity. So maybe we get the return we all think we should get for him.
Talking to Bryce Simon here, the host of the Motor City Hoops podcast. You can get it wherever you get your podcast. He does deep dives, folks. And if you're, I don't want to label it as like a basketball geek podcast or anything like that, but it is in depth. No, it is. But I appreciate it, though. He does film breakdowns and everything, so whatever he says is coming from a base of knowledge. It's not just somebody that taps into a game and has some hot takes, as he talked about. But no, I mean, as you look at the trade deadline and stuff like that, where with the Pistons, with Troy Weaver, and the whole Jerami Grant trade situation right now, this is where you're at right now, I guess, right, Bryce, where he's at that point in his career where he's going to be a free agent after next year, and a $20 million salary is going to be the new $30 million salary next year in the era when everybody has cap space is going to be the new $20 million salary. That'll just be the way that it goes. So, Bryce, when you look at it from that standpoint, you either have to go to that level, that $30 to $35 million per year, or you have to decide that you want to kind of cash out and get assets right now, right? That's basically the gist of it all.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I've had to rein myself in. At one point, I thought Jerami Grant was going to be a Piston for life. Like I think I said on my podcast that I thought he would retire a Detroit Piston. Obviously, I'm 100% wrong. But part of the reason I think is the next contract he's going to demand. I also think things changed when Cade Cunningham got drafted. A lot of things changed when Cade Cunningham got drafted. And this is his franchise now. He's the number one guy. And I think every decision that gets made now has to be with Cade in mind and what fits him best. But yeah, I don't think I would have been a fan of giving Jerami Grant the 4-year, $118 million contract at the end of the current one that's been reported that he wants.
All right. So here's my question.
Get to it, D-Mac. The floor is yours.
And to your point, Bryce, the fact is thank you for answering me that. Like, because as a Pistons fan, yes, because that shows me direction. They have to move on from Jerami Grant. He has to be moved because then we can move forward. And then all these other, not delusions, but expectations are what we thought. Now we know, right? And with what we know, and I was saying this to Neil more and more, is, man, as every day, almost every hour gets closer to this Ben Simmons thing, the more sense it makes to me. Now, Neil said yesterday that we got to do whatever it takes to get him, but trade Saddiq Bey. My question to you, Bryce, do we need to do whatever it takes to put Ben Simmons and Cade Cunningham beside each other? Now, we know we're going to need more eventually, but if that's what it takes as the two-pillar guys of the three-pillar league, is that anything it takes, or is Neil more on point to say selectively?
I'm probably leaning a little bit more towards Neil, and I'll tell you guys, I'm a big Ben Simmons fan in terms of if he would be the player that I think he could be and flourish in that role. Like, I don't know how much we want to get into the weeds on this, but I think he's a Draymond Green type role. Like, put him in the ball screen and roll, short roll, attack the basket, make plays. Like, I think, and he's a very versatile defender. So he does a lot of really good things. I think the narrative around Ben Simmons has got overblown. I would have a hard time attaching Saddiq Bey to that deal because you have to put shooters around Ben Simmons. There's no question about it. He can't shoot. We all know it. But I love the idea of Ben Simmons coming to Detroit for the right price, not by any means necessary, though.
Okay.
And I guess, Bryce, my question to you is this then, because I've kind of kicked this back around, and there's obviously a lot of basketball people I talk to on a day-to-day basis, where I was with, look, if you're going to do the Jerami Grant thing, and I would assume you probably have to attach like a Kelly Olynyk to make the numbers work, because that's how this goes. You got to make the numbers work. That's as the baseline. My stead is with that, and you tell me if I'm crazy, and I'm playing a little fantasy basketball here. I can do that, damn it. I do that. I never do that. I'm doing it right here with Bryce. I'm of the opinion, Bryce, that I literally would do that. And you know the Daryl Morey talks that were out there, and maybe the offer that he turned down, Saddiq Bey with Olynyk and Grant and a protected first. I would take Bey out of that deal. And I know they can't make this trade until the draft pick becomes their own because they technically don't own their draft pick this year. And this is kind of a geeky rule thing we'll get into later. Once that pick conveys, if they have the number 3 pick in the draft, I would move that pick this year with Olynyk and Grant and do the Ben Simmons thing and move on that way. But I'll take Bey back.
Yeah, that one's tough. I like a few of the guys at the top of the draft, so it would really depend on where that pick ends up. Here's where I think the Pistons have a hard time getting something from Ben Simmons from the Sixers. I think the Sixers need a guard. Like, they need a guy that can go get a bucket on the wing, and that's not something the Pistons have. You know what I'm saying? Like, so because you're not putting Cade Cunningham in that deal,
right?
So I don't think the Pistons can put the best offer on the table for Ben Simmons. Now, if that pick landed 4, 5, 6, maybe the guy, again, not to get in the weeds of the draft, but maybe the Jaden Ivey out of Purdue, maybe that guy is exciting to the Sixers, and then you could attach him to Jerami Grant. That would be something I'd entertain.
All right, where are you at right today, Bryce? Is Ben Simmons become a Piston? We already established Jerami Grant will be leaving somewhere, or is there another name out there that maybe we don't know, or the Pistons stand pat until all these things are answered as far as moving forward?
I don't think Ben Simmons becomes a Piston. I don't think that's where Jerami Grant ends up going. The name I really like, and I don't even know if this guy's actually on the market, so this will get, I know we're running out of time here, but I like the idea of putting a package together for Jaylen Brown in Boston. Now, I don't know, like that may be playing fantasy, GM, like you said, Neil. I don't know if they're ready to separate those guys or not. I have no idea.
That's what we do on Big D Energy, baby. That's what we do, Bryce. But that's a guy, and I think it's important because you're like you said, you're always diving deep and thinking, and who would work here, right? Because we're hopefully this is the worst it's going to be as a Pistons fan, but there are things in the hopper. How about let's talk about what's going down with Motor City, the team you cover down there. Like, what about Garza, different guys like that? Are there some guys that are down there that can eventually be a part of the big team? That's a no.
I like Luka Garza.
That's a no. That's
Okay, tread
Bryce,
lightly, Bryce.
Sorry, we got bad connection. We got to hit a break. Stuff like that. You said no. That's okay.
No, Bryce, break it down though, because Garza
down.
gets a lot of love. Obviously, on Twitter, gets a lot of love on social media, YouTube chat thread. You break it down for real, man. You do the film study, you do the analysis. You tell me.
He's not very good defensively. Like, he's just not. And like, it's not one of those where people say he's not good defensively and it's like, oh, okay, he's like kind of a negative. He's a big negative. He's not good in ball screen defense. He doesn't protect the rim. I think he's gonna have to learn to actually, this is gonna sound crazy, but he's gonna have to learn to like take charges to protect the lane. He doesn't defensive rebound. If you look at the numbers, he actually has more offensive rebounds than defensive rebounds. So let's transition to the positive. Yes, offensively, he spates the floor. There's no question about that. I understand it. I have questions, Neil and Darren, like, is he really going to be that high level of a three-point shooter? Like, I know people are going to think I'm crazy for saying that, and I love his dad. I follow his dad on Twitter, and he does great stuff. And he's talked about how high level of a shooter is, but we haven't seen it play out with the numbers. And he only had 1 year in college where he was over 40% from three. He has to be a major, major positive on the offensive end to make up for the negatives on the defensive end. I think he's like your third center is kind of what he may end up being, because he does work hard.